What happens when you get a Brazilian, a Dutchman, Canadian all together in a room together and we talk F1? Well, we're going to find out what happens when that happens because we don't know what's going to happen. Joining me, Brazilian F1 reporter Julianne Cerasoli from EuroL and Dutch motorsport reporter Nelson Valkenburg with ViaPlay. Julianne, thank you very much for taking the time to come on. How are you?
Very good, very good. I heard you haven't been sleeping much. I think I was closer to the time zone, even though I am Brazilian. I am in London, so closer after testing. But yes, it's still surviving.
Nelson's fine, though, because he's adapted back to his original time zone. So how you feeling, buddy?
Well, I've lost my voice in 3 days of commentary of the test days. So much to talk about that I've lost my voice.
Well, I'm still trying to get off this whole jet lag thing because I'm pretty bad with it. I don't know how you guys deal with it as much as you do, with as much as you travel, but I struggle.
Well, I usually fly economy, so it's not like how you flew.
I flew economy from where did I fly economy from? Oh my God, Bahrain to London. That was 6.5 hours in the middle row, mind you. Ooh. And the person who was sitting in the seat in front decided they were going to put that seat all the way back, and they're literally in my lap.
It wasn't me because I always fly on the window.
I think it was an employee from one of the other teams. So. It was,
well, if it makes you feel better, my bag took 1 hour to arrive when I got to Heathrow. My flight was full of F1 people. Everybody was going where are our bags? So yeah.
The joys of travel.
Oh, it's the greatest. So I'd mentioned on the podcast on Friday at the end of day 3 of testing that I'd come on and do a sort of a longer forum to sort of flush out the teams and sort of what we heard and things of that nature from the final week of testing. So here we are, two of the best reporters in the biz joining me to do this. So I appreciate your time, guys. Let's start with Mercedes. Julianne, I'll start with you. What did you make of their test? Because obviously it was impressive, the mileage that they accumulated, but I think all of us feel that they're probably the team to beat starting off.
Yeah, there are a few interesting things about Mercedes. They were so at ease with the testing program that they did the race simulations in the second Bahrain test. So if we look at trying to crunch up the numbers about the race simulations, which are the ones that teams are looking at. They don't really look at the qualifying simulations that much because they're so much harder to read. If you look at the numbers, you think, where are they really the favorites? I cannot see that. But you cannot see that because they did most part of the race simulations in the second test. And the track hadn't rubbered in as much in the second test. And then I think the best race simulation was with George in the morning. So, of course, with tire degradation, the times are not going to be as good. But speaking with Ferrari, they were like, we can tell when they're pushing a little bit more. There's some things that they can do at turn 12, turn 13, that our car cannot do. So we know, and that's why we say they are the favorites, even though if you try to pick up the numbers, you're not going to see it. But at the same time, and in the last test, they were testing pit stops. They were so ahead of everyone that they were testing pit stops. Yeah. But at the same time, they had a lot of issues. And they had issues with their engine. So they will go on one hand happy with their pace. On another hand, I'm sure a lot of things they are looking into in terms of reliability.
Nelson, what do you think?
I think that car looked quite sorted. Every time we were on board with it, it looked on rails, maybe not as much on rails as the McLaren, but we'll come to that. But it looked sorted. It looks like they're in quite a happy place, but Julianne is right. I think the little niggles and the big niggle of the engine issue threw them off a little, and that gave them less confidence than they would have had otherwise. Strange test, though, again, for Kimi Antonelli. It's quick, but not the mileage that he wants, same as last week. But they are definitely in my top 3, but God knows how much they still have left. I do agree they didn't push at all.
I think the compression ratio conversation dominated Wednesday and Thursday. Obviously, there was the F1 commission meeting that took place on Wednesday, and same with the power unit meeting as well that happened in Bahrain. Julianne, you and I were both in the press conference room when Toto Wolff came in, and obviously we saw just how frustrated he was getting with the entire conversation. But it's like I had said previously on this podcast, it's like when there's smoke, usually there's some fire behind it, eh?
Yeah, I heard something that really surprised me during the test, that all this conversation about the compression ratio was put to discussion in the engine meetings since April. Since April, everybody else knows that they are doing this. And what looked like to me is that what they tried to do is just to delay all the discussion so they could try to do the same, as nobody could find out exactly what they're doing. And you know how these things happen. They ask the FIA, how about this? How about this? And they're saying, no, no, no. So they don't know exactly what Mercedes are doing. And I think that's why these decisions got so much delayed, that we are getting, 1 week and a half to the start of the season, and it's still not decided what is going to be like. And it's probably their fault, because they were just trying to buy themselves time, and time just disappeared.
Yeah, it's almost like Mercedes threw down the gauntlet. Okay, you know what we're doing. The FIA says it's okay, copy us. And now that they are starting to realize they can't, like Julianne says, and try to move the needle in another way, that really pisses Toto off. Because I think he challenged them to try and copy them. And this, either way, could be a long, drawn-out thing. Because if the FIA said all along that what Mercedes was doing is okay, then on what basis do you change the rules? Even though you can do it on a supermajority, there needs to be a basis of rule change. So, yeah, I could see this, if it's really impactful on the championship, could see this be drawn out in court even.
And that's why they are not changing the rules. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Tim, but that's why they're not changing the rules. They are changing the test. Yeah. They are changing the test. So what the others are saying is that the car needs to be within the rules all time. And that's why you change the test. But then the way they're trying to approve the test, which is in cold and hot engine, that's going to make the other engines be outside of the rules. And then the other manufacturers will be saying, okay, so let's go back. That rule doesn't apply anymore. So
and that's what Mercedes is banking on, that at least one of the other manufacturers isn't certain they would pass the test under 130 degrees centigrade. So it is so political that I love it. But it's also going to affect the other discussions, because if you have a supermajority for this, but they also need a supermajority for, let's say, the starting procedure. Let's see who gets the most support for everything. It's so interesting.
Yeah, it's weird too, eh? Like when you take a look at what we were hearing on Wednesday, when they're going to come back and they're going to put it to a vote to change the rule and how the compression ratio can be measured at 130 degrees, and then also measured again at ambient temperature, and then the next day you come back and you hear, well, the teams might now not vote for that change because a lot of them feel like they couldn't meet the expectation in ambient temperature. And so I had to go and meet with one of the team bosses, and I literally had to get them to explain it to me like I was a 12-year-old, just simply because like I didn't even understand, like, how can you measure, and maybe you guys can explain this to our audience better than I can, but in all honesty, how do you measure it when it's at ambient? It should already be at 16-to-1 ratio at ambient.
Yeah, but with the expanding nature of the metal molecules, there is this potential with the piston to go to a 1:18 ratio, and what they must probably do is bake an engine.
Yeah,
that's probably the only thing
they said they were going to do.
Yeah, put it all the way up to 130 degrees, and I just feel like we're watching a political power play in action.
Yes.
It's going to be fun, and it's going to be like flexi wings. We all think everything changes, and then we get to August and nothing changes in terms of competitiveness. It's quite funny.
And Julianne, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you broke the story on who may have leaked the information from Mercedes.
Oh, yeah.
Out to was it okay? Yeah, if you could just explain that whole scenario as well, and I might be able to put a bow on this entire thing.
Yeah, I cannot tell you who told me, but it was someone like top from one of the teams who told me what happened was a guy went from Red Bull to Mercedes, and first they tried at Red Bull to do the same thing. I think what we have to make it clear that what Mercedes are doing is natural to the engine. What do I mean by that? Because if you have a compression ratio of 16:1, and then when it gets hot, it's supposed to go down, and theirs goes up. So it's something, that's why it's so hard for the others to understand exactly what they are doing. So Red Bull would have tried to replicate that, couldn't, and then told the others, and that's how he ended up in the meetings in April.
So I was in the paddock on Friday, and Toto literally grabbed Laurent Mekies, and they were chatting in the paddock. And so I was like, well, I'm gonna watch what happens here, because this is interesting. You don't normally see two team bosses having that conversation out in the middle of the public, but that conversation looked like it was getting heated.
The rivalry.
I was curious, like, well, that's funny. Like, Laurent is, he's fairly new to being the team principal of Red Bull Racing, and obviously Toto and the compression ratio conversation had been kicking off, and so I was wondering if, like, what was going on there, and why Toto would be having this type of conversation with Laurent out in the open like that. But I found that quite strange.
But Laurent is very experienced in these kind of things, because he was at Ferrari, dealing with all the political stuff, and he was already before he was at the FIA, so he knows those games really well.
Yeah, and he's great to chat with. I got the opportunity to sit down with him as well during the week, and learned a lot from the guy. I think he's very, very good for Red Bull Racing. But we'll get into that in a second. I want to jump on to the fuel from Petronas, obviously, that provides fuels to Mercedes, because that's another thing that really ticked off Toto as well in the press conference. I can tell you what I understand from that, and then you guys just chime in with what you've heard. But it's not the fact that the Petronas fuel hasn't been validated or verified. It's the process of which the fuel is being made, that in the moment the subcontractors from the FIA who go and check with the fuel providers to see how that fuel is being made, it needs to be carbon neutral. And at the moment for Petronas, from my understanding, is that secondary party from the FIA is still trying to validate all the other subcomponents that go into the fuel, to how it's being made for it to be green or synthetic, so to speak. And that is what's taking up the time in Petronas being verified.
And it really ticked Toto off in the press conference. He really went off on a tangent there, which almost feels like he's under pressure there. And there's ramifications for other other teams as well in this, of course. So I think the implication is big if in Melbourne the Mercedes engines aren't running on the optimum fuel. They will still be running with a plan B, but that by no means is as effective as the fuel that's specifically designed for this engine. So that could have ramifications for McLaren and for Alpine, as well as for Williams. So you can imagine what those customers are saying to Petronas and to Mercedes. And I am very, very much looking forward to see whether or not they figure this one out. They weren't willing to tell us on which fuel they were running in testing.
And then also another information that I don't know if Nelson has this, but I was trying to figure out Aramco as well. I don't know anything about Aramco's fuel. I know that Red Bull is okay, Shell was the first one, and Audi is okay as well with BP. But Aramco, I don't know. And when I was trying to find out about them in the paddock, they were like, will they even need it? The car's breaking down all the time. They don't even need any fuel. But I'm not sure if they have the homologation yet.
They were very coy about it. They really didn't want to talk about fuel.
From my understanding, it has been, but that's from my understanding. It again, let's see what happens, but I believe it to be okay. It is a very complex and complicated thing, the green fuel, the e-fuel, synthetic fuel, whatever you want to approach it as, and how that sort of gets measured out and how this subcontracted company has to go through and analyze the fuel and where does each component of it comes from. And for our listeners and viewers, just giving you an example, when the teams have to make this, or excuse me, when the fuel providers have to make this synthetic fuel, can come from biomass. So let's just say banana skins that are obviously degrading and they're not going to be, it has been eaten obviously, but the skin itself, you can break that down as well and help it go into that sort of biomass division. But where did that banana come from? And how was it made?
And how was the transport as well? The transport to the lab, everything is taken into account. And what most of the fuel, because we don't know, only Shell will have biofuel and the others will have a synthetic, but it would be like 100 components. So for 100 components, you have to go step by step what was used to produce each one of them. And that's why it's been taking longer than what they anticipated.
The whole situation is ripe literally for a deal. Because if they want Mercedes to cut it out with compression ratio and they want their fuel to be acknowledged, it's almost like...
It has never been done like this in F1. It would be the first time.
Never. Yeah, it's very fascinating. I mean, I think the entire process of how all of this stuff needed to be checked is, I never knew until I actually sat down with a few individuals who knew this stuff really well during the Bahrain testing, and they had to sit there and explain it to me again like I was a 12-year-old, so I could sit there and learn and take it all in, because it actually is quite complicated. Let's move on to Ferrari, because I think they're holding something back, Julianne. I really do.
Well, no tires at least. They threw every tire they had at the testing.
Do you think they're holding something back? I think they have grown a lot during testing because the car wasn't behaving really well to begin with. And then with the upgrades, it started to handle really well. And a lot of things worked for Ferrari. So when it got hotter in Bahrain, they didn't open up the car as much. So I think all the cooling of the car seems to be working well. The handling seems to be working well. I heard nice things about the engine. The engine, they would have opted for a smaller turbo. And then being with a smaller turbo, you spin faster and then it's better for the starts. Of course, if there's a track with a lot of time on the gas and it's not as good, it would be better to have a bigger turbo, but it's a trade-off.
Yeah, and coming out of the corners, this car is mega. The engine spools up so quickly. So that trade-off seems to be working in Bahrain.
Yeah, yes. And that's something really important for anything we read about testing. Bahrain is not really representative. We end up going to Bahrain because Bahrain, they pay for Formula One to do testing there. But it's a tire degrading machine, Bahrain. So usually what you know about Bahrain is which car is better with the tires. Yeah. And a bit slow corners and all that.
Well, we left last year Bahrain thinking Alpine may be the 15. Didn't we learn how different it would turn out?
I think they need a little more downforce on the car when it comes to the aerodynamic side of things. And I think that obviously with running that Spec A chassis that they had, it does look like they know where to go in terms of making those changes to the car. Watching Leclerc on Friday night when he was coming out of turn 11 and going up the hill to turn 12, the right-hander, I like to watch from there when I look for the amount of downforce a car has on it, because when a driver can get back on the power, you can see the rear of the car sort of squat down, and where they get back on the power on the exit. And watching Leclerc come through there, they're like, the McLaren coming through there could easily like trump back onto the power, and the rear was settling in quite nicely. But for the Ferrari, it was a little bit more challenging. There was a push lap that Leclerc was on when he did try to get back to power, and he actually went off. And that is a clear sign that, for me, that car still needs a little bit more, well, it needs a lot more refining on the aerodynamic side. But I think by the time, Nelson, we get to Australia, the car that we saw in Bahrain is going to look a lot different from the car we're going to see in Australia.
But it's my understanding that will be the same for both the Mercedes and the McLaren. And that's the thing. Can Ferrari keep up?
Yes.
Clearly, they've had a good test. Clearly, they nailed the setup a lot better. Clearly, Leclerc feels quite at home in this car. Their long runs weren't as good, but if it's low on downforce, it will eat tires more. But the proof will be in this extended phase of the first part of the season, if they can actually keep up. They have a very interesting advantage in terms of the subtleness of the engine and the gear, what it does to the gearbox right now. But if others start nailing it, can they keep up? And they haven't over the last few years. Clearly, they started off amazingly well in 22 in a new wreck situation, and then they couldn't keep up. But right now, it looks well sorted, but even though the balance is on a knife edge, if you nail it, it's really quick.
And Ferrari has been innovating. When was the last time that we've seen Ferrari with something that would turn heads in the paddock?
Yes, they've done a good job, and I agree. When you look at the rear, the amount of cooling slots, or the lack thereof, it bodes really well for what that power unit is doing in the back of the car. And you see it as well on the Haas. Haas, a little bit more cooling, I would say, but not a lot. And that's quite tightly packaged as well. So it must be a comfortable situation to be in for now.
And both drivers, I mean, first week of testing, obviously, Lewis didn't look like he was in the greatest of moods, and that kind of sent some alarm bells off. And then as that week kind of progressed, seems like he got a little bit happier with things. But then coming into the second week, seeing Leclerc on Wednesday, he didn't look extremely happy or excited. I'm not too sure if that's with the direction that the car was going in at that time, or if that had to do with the regulation itself and how to drive the car. But by the time we got to Friday, I mean, both drivers, the final day of testing, both drivers were looking a little more pleased, I would say, with everything.
It looks a lot better in cooler conditions, though, than it does in the heat. And I think Lewis has driven it more during the hotter periods. And it seems the balance shift when the temperature drops is in favor of the afternoon and evening. So a wait and see, but by far a more positive week than last week.
I know that at Ferrari they were a bit like, oh my God, because Lewis was really not happy after the first day in the second Bahrain test. Yeah. And they were a bit, oh my God, it's starting all again. Oh, everything just going downhill from here. But then next day, he was absolutely fine with the car. It was okay. Lewis is back to being happy again. It wasn't something that escalated really badly.
They should never have put him in the pen after morning's testing with aero rakes. How you will never have a happy driver if you do that.
Yeah. Their starts are going to be rapid. Let's just get that out of the way. I mean, like that. You don't think so, Julian? Like they looked incredible. Even the Haas looked great, especially on the last day.
They did look incredible, but I think the Mercedes doesn't look that bad, and I think they really weren't pushing their starts. If you looked at George's start, it's very like eh.
Yeah, I heard that there are some data saying that the Mercedes starts were actually better, but they were not pushing all the phases, and also there might be changes coming to the starting process. And it could be that they don't even need a supermajority or anything because the FIA are going to say this is a safety matter and then they can do whatever they want. I know some drivers, I asked drivers because of that. I asked drivers, do you think it's dangerous? And then Lewis just rushed to say, no, it's not dangerous. Of course, he's going to say it's not dangerous.
Red Bull drivers, absolutely yes.
Yeah, but other drivers came to talk to me after the interview saying, because it was the press conference with other drivers sitting with him, like, he said it. He's a 7-time world champion. I'm not going to be the one saying, he's wrong. But I don't agree.
That's what I have with Tim in this podcast.
Wait, hold on. What do we think the changes are going to be? Because we already got one change. We've already had one change. And they were practicing that one change all last week.
I think it has to do with electric energy. They might be able, because now it kicks off from 50 kph and it could be lower. Because when the regulation started, it was 100 kph already. So they can push it back. I heard that one of the solutions that was given to FOM, to F1, was to have a completely silent start, only with a K. Imagine that. The engineer said this is, in the engineering point of view, that would be the best start. The cars are the way the cars are going to work better is if we only have the start with a K, but it's going to be completely silent. And they're like completely silent, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Formula E start.
Only with the electric engine. And then they were like, no, we don't want the best solution. We want the solution that will cause more chaos. And that's how we ended up with what we have now.
Well, chaos we might have, but if they allow an earlier electronic start, let's say the battery to kick in, that would negate the advantage of the smaller turbo earlier. But also here so much politics. Let's wait and see.
It's definitely going to be chaos. Like there's no getting around that.
You're going to be so disappointed if it's all going according to plan.
Yes. The problem is the engineers are so clever. They will find a way.
Yeah. I mean, just to see how much everyone is, just to see how much the cars got developed over the last 3 days of testing was absolutely ridiculous. So, yeah, by the time we get to Melbourne, I'm pretty sure the starts aren't going to be probably as dramatic as we think they're going to be. I mean, but they could. Obviously, they could. Let's talk about McLaren, because I've got them, for me, ranked third in this sort of pecking order. Standing trackside. I've got them
in first.
Well, hold on. Standing trackside, I mean, the chassis itself looks really good. It looks really, really good. I would say their aerodynamic package looks better than Mercedes's. Watching both Norris and Piastri, when they finally started to get a setup on the car that actually suited the way they wanted the car to handle, by the time we got to like Thursday evening and then seeing all the running that happened on Friday, I mean, that car looked the most dialed in out of all the cars. However, I think it's what's holding them back, or what may hold them back, is understanding a bit more the power unit and their gearbox, which I feel is the best on the grid at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the gearbox, once they fully understand this powertrain, I think this gearbox will set them apart and maybe in front of the Mercedes. Because if you look at starting procedures, but also the way they downshift, that gearbox can take a lot. And I just have this simmering feeling that they weren't really thinking about lap time similar to Mercedes, but it just looks so sorted already that I feel that they're in top spot.
What I hear, I heard many times over the last week, is that they are a bit overweight. So once the weight comes off, and then you're going to see the lap time that we didn't see in testing. But the car looks really good. The front of the car looks as good as last year's.
Yeah, strangely, it's had a little bit of understeer in fast corners, and it suddenly switched on the Thursday to massive oversteer, but they immediately dialed it out again, and I think they were just checking what they could do with this current package. Yeah. But if you have to choose a little bit of understeer in fast corners, that's totally fine.
Yeah, I was watching Piastri. He was getting a lot of not a lot. He was getting a little bit of understeer heading into turn 11, and then obviously on exit as well. But then it was sorting itself out as the day like went on. But again, still, I think they do have a little inherent understeer dialed into that car. I mean, again, like Julianne was saying, like at the top of the show. I mean, that's just for Bahrain. This is all going to change as we continue to go track to track to track to track, and everyone's going to have their strengths and weaknesses at certain tracks. But I mean, both drivers, from my point of view, seem to get a little happier as the final week of testing went along. I know I ran into Lando on Friday night as everything was finished, and he was heading home, and yeah, he seemed in pretty good spirits.
Long runs looked very, very comfortable for them as well. Not only were they comfortably clear of Verstappen on a similar run, but it was so even keeled. The tire deck was, well, not non-existent, but it was level around the car. So the balance didn't change if you stayed on board with them. And I think that long run gave them a lot of confidence.
And Lando seems to be trying to figure out how to act like a world champion, isn't he? Yeah, every single interview he changes a little bit. Should I be a bit more daring, or should I not be? Should I be cautious because now I have a responsibility? It's being fun to watch.
Yeah, it has, for sure. Red Bull Racing, Nelson, you can kick this one off because Laurent told me, and I'm allowed to say this on the record, Laurent told me that the first little bit of the start of this season for them, he feels that they're sort of in that third, fourth spot. And he said there could be some pain coming for them with the car even stopping on track in some races at the beginning here.
Well, that sounds like Detroit to me. That's the line.
I know. He basically
there.
just took what he said there and he repackaged it and he gave it to me again. And I was kind of like,
If you look at the data from first week to second week, that car behaved quite differently on the straights. It started clipping way earlier. And I half felt that they were tuning it down a little, or like making a point. Very interesting. James Vowell said that the moment they started talking about the Red Bull, it went slower. So he implied that they were sandbagging massively. But it had many little niggles. And I think that really set them back. They lost a lot of track time, mostly when Hadjar was due to drive it. But it looks less well put together. I think there's something with vibrations in that engine somehow that is causing a few of these niggles. But it may be political, maybe part of the process that we're in, but a lot of the competitors are really ranking Red Bull first. Which goes to show that they're taking them seriously, at least. So on one hand, you've got Laurent Mackie saying, we're not first. The other saying, well, Red Bull's first. That means they're probably second or third.
What do you think, Julianne?
Yeah, something that Pierre said caught my attention. He said maybe we started testing with a better understanding of how to deal with the electrical power, and then we've seen the way Max was working around with downshifts and high revs and all that. So that was understood maybe a little bit before by them, and they prepared the gearbox for that and prepared everything for that in a way that maybe caught others by surprise a little bit. So I think that was the Bahrain number 2. And then Bahrain number 1, and then Bahrain number 2. The others maybe understood a little bit better, but I think we're gonna have to wait and see in that one. It's an engine. You have a lot of very bright Honda people doing that engine, and I wouldn't be surprised if they came up with something fantastic for the electrical side of it.
It looks very sound, and Max told me last week. Like second week, we'll see some more of the real cards showing. Now, I don't believe that we've seen a lot of the cards, but he sort of dismissed the first week a little bit in terms of pecking order. But balance-wise, it looked okay. I think it's not the best. It's definitely not fourth balance-wise. So they're in the middle of the fight.
And their deployment actually does look pretty good. I'll give you an example. So I was standing like Friday night trackside, and Lando was trying to get by George. And it actually looked like a bit of a challenge for him to do it. And I think George actually had to slow up a bit to let Lando get by. I was watching then Max, and both of them were on pretty good laps. And Max trying to get by George. And it happened right in front of me. It was on the run down to the final corner. And Max had deployed, and I got a picture of it. It's on my Instagram. And Max had deployed, and he actually was able to get past Russell. And I think that is what Toto was referring to on the week one of testing when he was talking about deployment. And I think they actually do have a bit more of an advantage over everyone else in that department. Their deployment actually, from what I've seen, looks actually really good.
They've gone really aggressive on it straight away.
Yes.
And I think that's also what Julianne means. Like, they were there first week with an understanding or a game plan, much more than the others, it seems. But I just don't know between these four how to choose. And that's maybe a good thing, because we didn't think we'd be in this position.
Yeah.
Having 3 engine manufacturers, 4 teams, and there's nothing to really choose and pick between them. So I'll relish it. I'm fine with it.
And we have to remember, just forgot to point out that McLaren, they didn't have the last specification of the Mercedes engine. So there's that to add as well.
Oh, yeah, great point. Yeah, great, very great point. Moving on to Haas, because I've got them 5th, but I think there is a gap to that cluster of four teams. But I've got them sort of leading that midfield. They look really, really good, only because they had covered, in Ayo Komatsu's words, covered off all the basics. And I think that, that in itself was the game plan, and he had mentioned it publicly, was just trying to make sure that they got through the basics and then could start working in on performance. And I got to sit down and speak with him as well, and he revealed a lot, but I would say one of the most impressive things with their car is simply the handling of it, and also the reliability of all of it. Yeah,
I think the reliability they can thank Ferrari for, clearly. On the powertrain front, that engine keeps going.
Oh, yeah.
What I really liked is that whether when Behrman was in the car, when Ocon was in the car, the other one was on the pit wall, or with the engineer, they were really working cohesively. And that's a Komatsu thing. I think what we saw 2 years ago when Komatsu had to steer the ship a little bit and get it upright, they dot their I's, cross their T's. He's working like an engineer with this team, and suddenly it looks very effective. And the car doesn't seem to have really big peaks, but it doesn't have valleys. And that means it's a solid midfielder for sure.
And what we know from Ayao as well is that he likes to go to testing with a very heavy car. So we have to put the weight factor in as well. But even so, what I heard in the paddock is a lot of people putting Alpine in front of Haas. Maybe not during testing, but the expectation for them to be ahead comes at Melbourne.
And I think also, for Esteban Ocon, just talking about their driver situation, I think this is a big season for him. I think at that team, I'm not too sure. When we take a look at what Ayo had said in weeks previous about Esteban's season back in 2025, and it's things we've already sort of known about or noticed, but he's expecting a lot from Esteban, especially this season, probably more so than what he's expecting from Oliver Behrman, which is a step up from last year.
Yeah, he's thrown down the gauntlet. You have to perform. We kept you a little bit out of pressure, took the pressure off a little bit last year, but now you have to deliver. Let's see how it goes. But Ocon did strike me as being pretty happy. The way he spoke after every session, the way they kept working together. Maybe yes, the Alpine is a little better on ultimate performance, but given the season, I think the Haas will will always be there or thereabouts. And I don't say then that they'll finish ahead of anyone in the championship, but I think they'll be the more reliably competitive team out of the two.
And then moving on, I've got Alpine, but again, I think like Alpine and Haas are actually a lot closer than what it may have appeared for some folks out on the track during testing. I think last year and sacrificing a lot of their season for this season has paid off for them. I think this is a car that they have that actually really looks like that they could add performance to it and be quite competitive. I mean, Gasly looked really good when I was watching him out on track. I believe it was Thursday, if my mind is correct.
Car looks really neutral, eh?
Yeah, it looks good. It looks really good. More so than what I was expecting. I don't know, Julianne, what do you think?
Well, at least it paid off for them, because for others who didn't develop anything last year, it's a different story. But yeah,
we'll get to them.
Yeah, so it really looks like a midfield kind of car. It's not impressive, but it seems a little bit, I don't know what you think, a bit slow turning in compared to the other cars, to the top cars. But everything working well. They had a bit some niggles. Let's remember that they are changing to the Mercedes engine, so it's a lot of things, a lot of processes are new for them, so they have to learn more than the other Mercedes clients. But everything seemed to be in place, and as I said, what I heard is that they're going to be fifth to start in the start of the season. But that adds even more pressure to Colapinto, doesn't it? Because they really need those points and really need him. He had most of last year just to, you add to your experience. Let's remember, he did F3 and he did half of a season in F2. And he went straight to F1. So it wasn't going to be easy for Colapinto anyway, but now he has this season on his belt and he stopped crashing as much. He's a very quick driver, but not very consistent. He had the time to be consistent, and he will be under pressure from the first race, because it's very clear from Briatore that that's the way he's going.
Yeah, but I think he will be helped by the change in regulation, because his inconsistency was not helped by the on and off again nature of last year's downforce. Very on a knife's edge, very changeable from mid to high speed corners. There's a lot of fun details on this car. Like it's well thought out, and I think they will benefit massively from running the Mercedes gearbox. That was a problem last year, the gearbox situation at Alpine. They will benefit from having a little bit more of a foundation to work from. I would love it for them, but how long before instability hits that team again? I don't know. I think Gasly will bring it from week to week, though.
Well, I mean, there are rumors that Christian Horner's coming in to buy them, and from things that I've heard, I mean, it sounds like that's pretty much on its way. It's whether or not Otro Capital is going to sell. So.
The only thing is that may add stability from where they're coming now, to have someone with something to prove, but also with something under his belt and is not as rash as Flavio is. That could actually help the team quite well.
Racing Bulls. The car looks tricky. That's where I've got them, right behind Alpine. The gearbox, understanding of the power unit also looks like they have a lot to do. I mean, watching Liam Lawson come into turn 10 and try to figure out the gearing was a little... They got some work to do there. And then obviously with the two drivers as well. I mean, they're still quite young and new to Formula One. I mean, obviously got the rookie in Arvid Lindblad as well, who did accumulate quite
that final day.
An impressive amount of mileage for Lindblad. But what do we make of Racing Bulls?
I don't know why you put them in front of Audi. For me, Audi is in front of them.
I agree. We're ganging up on you.
No,
Yeah.
do it. I want to know why. Why is Audi in front of Racing Bulls?
Did you see Bortoletto's race simulation in the last day?
Yeah,
It was better than Alpine. It was better than Haas, but he was at the track later. He wasn't the best time. He wasn't the premium time. I think he started his simulation at 5:30 in the last day, so the track had rubber in. Everything was perfect, but it was a very impressive race simulation. And you talk about Alpine Audi later, right? But all the niggles they had, it was never the same problem. So they were finding, okay, this is a different problem. So there was not one thing that they came out of testing saying, oh, this is a fundamental problem in the car. And the car looked okay. It's just a bit downshifts, a little bit unstable.
It's a bit raw. A bit raw, a bit aggressive. But that goes for the Racing Bulls as well. And I think Liam Lawson is struggling massively with this car. Arvid Lindblad, I got the sense that he really very maturely got on with the job, but Lawson got frustrated by the car and started pushing through understeer, doing some weird stuff. And we know how much he struggled with rear instability last year and how happy he was when he got back into the stable V-Carb car. And if this car requires some rear instability by virtue of the downshifts and how you turn into a corner and try to move all the weight forward, it looked like he was struggling to get his head around it all. And he looked frustrated and more frustrated as the test got on. He didn't settle where Lindblad settled. But I agree with Julianne, the car looked better at the start of Bahrain 2 than the Audi, but they didn't move forward with the package at all, where Audi seemed to settle down, and the car looks a little sluggish in the shorter work, but it is more settled. It just feels like a very peaky car, the V-Carb, compared to the Audi. And I agree, the long run that Bortoletto did put it ahead of the V-Carb for me.
The only reason I put Racing Bulls ahead of Audi was simply because of the car itself. I mean, the engine I felt was better with the Racing Bulls car. It just needed some more fine tuning and some understanding. Same with the gearbox. And with the Audi, I mean, it looked like it needed to go on a bit of a diet. It didn't. The engine, the power unit, I was just waiting for that thing to give out or blow up at some point.
I asked Gabriel, I asked him, did you ask the engineers what's going on with your engine? Because why does it sound so strange? And he laughed at me. He said, no, it sounds strange, but it doesn't feel. It feels good. I know it looks like it's about to break down, but that's not what it feels when you are inside the car. Yes, we have some work to do, especially with under braking, downshifting, and then the car is a bit nervous there. But it's a good engine. Actually, I spoke with people from other teams, and they said the engine is as good as the Ferrari.
Well, it just feels like an unfinished package still.
Yeah, that car looked like a bathtub coming out of turn 11. Like it did. I was like, not too sure. I actually felt like I was putting Audi a little bit higher than they probably should have been, in my opinion, when watching them come through there. But however, let's talk a little more about Audi because Julianne, I want to hear more about Gabriel Bortoletto. This is a really, really big season for him coming into his second season in F1. His first season was really strong. I felt that he was one of the top rookies, and I'm excited to see what we could get from him this season.
So he is a guy who really likes a technical challenge. So regulations like this with energy management and all that, does he like it? He doesn't like it, but he embraces it, and he's gonna. I asked him, okay, can you put this in your home simulator, because I don't know how much you can translate. Yeah. And he said, watch out, because I am working on a very good project, and you're going to love it. It's going to be great, because he's thinking about, okay, I'm going to every single racetrack as prepared as I can be. He's a bit like Max in that sense. That's why they get on so well. So he's trying to be really, really prepared for the energy management, and he's really relishing this new challenge. And he's saying, Audi, we are going to win. We are going to be champions. I know. I just don't know when. Well, of course he's going to say that.
But if you embrace it, it's mentally easier than when you see it as an enemy. And that's, I think, what sort of started to happen to Liam Lawson. He might get out of it, but I also earmarked Bortoleto as the guy who will get his head around this and will enjoy the challenge. So, yeah.
Williams, I've got next. Honestly, I don't really know what to make of Williams, because it wasn't a super impressive test, and I mean, missing the shakedown, I mean that's fine, but in my notes I've got doesn't look impressive.
No, and the drivers are not happy. It seems to not completely respond to setup changes the way they want. It looks, and what we're hearing, Julianne, you've probably heard this even better, it's massively overweight, and it looks it. In the shorter corners, it just looks numb. And that must be an awful way to start the season for them. And also, there wasn't really an upward trajectory with that car. It was there. It made the numbers. And then what? There was nothing to get excited about.
Yeah, I heard something from inside the team. I think it explains really well what's going on. It said there's one hump, we go, and then another hump comes. We fix one problem, another problem comes. And then I said, what I heard is that you are 20 kilos overweight, and the Aston is 35 kilos overweight. And then this person just looked down and I think we are the heaviest. So I what? Heavier than 35? So it's a lot of weight to come down. And of course, when this kind of situation happens, you don't have two chassis weighting the same. So one of the drivers is going to get the heavier one, and they are not going to be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and trying to manage that is just going to be, I mean, try to manage both Alex and Carlos together especially when you have to make a decision, like James Vowles will have to make that decision, and that's going to be extremely interesting. I mean, like even last year, once Carlos actually started to figure it out and catch up to Alex, I mean, I don't know how happy he was about all of that when Carlos really started to take it to him through the end of last season. I've heard some things, but Doralton cannot be happy with how this has turned out, with a car that's come late to all of this and overweight, and considering how much they sacrificed last season, where if last season they actually put all the energy into it that a lot of the other teams did, you have to think about where they actually could have finished. And all the talk that we got about how, we were going to delay development because we're focusing on 2026. That's the goal, 2026. We heard all this stuff, and then they show up, and yeah, in my notes, doesn't look impressive.
No, but what's the golden rule when you deal with investors? Under promise, over deliver. And they've done the opposite. And they look problematic because they've always had this mantra for the last 3 years. I don't care about this. I don't care about this year, but 26 is everything. And then you miss the mark by so much when it's such a huge opportunity. That is. How do you get back from that? How do you resolve the weight issues, keep up with development, keep up with parts? They've been down this road. They know that it's just, it goes like this. It's you build a tower of hurt. And if you have two drivers that feel that they're due some race wins, it's problematic.
And for me, I cannot get my head around it, because what I was hearing in the end of last year is that their project was very good. So whatever was in the computers was very good. And then what I thought, okay, maybe what happened was that the project was good, but then when they went to manufacturing, they just couldn't do it as well as they should. So everything took ages, and then they had to reinforce everything because they didn't get through the crash test, and that's how they got overweight. But if you look at the car, there's nothing interesting there.
No, it feels safe.
Yes, it feels safe. Why did you waste your whole year to produce? The only good thing about this whole 35, 26 thing with Williams is that at least they were fifth in the championship. At least it wasn't like Alpine's championship. No. Otherwise, it would have been.
But it's funny you mention Alpine, because this rings like Alpine 2 years ago, starting off with an overweight chassis because they had to reinforce it because they couldn't get through crash testing, and that hurt them for 2 years. That situation, and it feels similar.
Let me tell you about a team who I'm massively impressed in, and that's Cadillac, because I've got them next. And I'm really digging this story, and also I'm really digging everything they got going on, from their team kit, which looks impressive. I really like it. From the driver's suits, they look awesome. That car looks incredible out on the track in terms of its design, color, the way they painted it. The comms team has done a great job in terms of messaging, communicating with us. I got to sit down and speak with Graham Loudon, and the amount of work that man's put into this project is extremely impressive. I also spoke with Dan Tauris as well. Really, I think all around, great tests from them. We weren't expecting the world. Honestly, I was expecting for a car not to show up to week one of testing.
It doesn't look like a new team. Every time I was in the paddock, I thought, looks like they've been here a while. And it goes, as you say, for the comms team, for the drivers, of course, but it just looks fine. On track, it looks low on downforce, but well balanced. It's not one massive problem. I did think they could have had more mileage. They started off not driving every morning, whether that is because parts don't fit correctly or the processes take a lot of time. But they must be incredibly proud with where they are right now. The big test is, can they develop it? Is this team ready to develop?
Yeah, I think what's interesting with the way they approached it, that they really played safe in every single step of the way. So they were doing the crash test in November. So they were making sure that they were prepared. And of course, if you do the crash test in November, your car is going to be a bit overweight. So you're not really trying to push. They were trying to first put the car on the track. It has worked. And now they can develop from that. It's the one approach that you can have. Just first you make sure you have the mileage, which didn't happen with the other team that we still haven't spoken about. And then you build on that, and that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and I think when they did good race simulations, very even keeled, okay, it was a little slower, but it didn't drop off, both for Perez and Bottas. I liked that they did it in the heat of the day, their race sims, so that's good. And when they tried to wring its neck, I think it was less than half a second slower than the Williams. And for them to be there, it's just impressive. But I also feel like we're all rooting for the new team. If this were a different team, we'd say, nothing special, looks undercooked, etc., etc. But we're giving them quite a pass because we're all inspired by what they're doing.
I think the next worry on their list is trying to just field both cars. I mean, from people I've spoken to at the team, it does sound like that is something they are worried about. Not the fact that they get two cars to the track. That's not the worry. It's actually fielding both cars throughout the entire weekend. That whole process, working with all the new crew, all the new mechanics, just making sure everything there goes smoothly. If anything, I feel that's going to hold this team back at the beginning of this season, it's going to be that. And it should. Yes, exactly. Trying to get everyone put in their right places to make sure that the team has success with both cars. And for me, that's where, from my understanding, that's where the worry sort of comes from for the team so far, moving on to the next round. But both drivers, I love the driver lineup. Both of them have so much experience. They're going to bring a lot to this team, both Sergio Perez, both Valtteri Bottas.
Bottas looks so happy. He looks so happy to be there.
So is Valtteri. They both do, right? So
yeah, and the fact that they have two chassis ready, by week one of Bahrain, because they used one car for Barcelona. The second one flew to Bahrain. It just goes to show what a good job this team has done in the time they had. It's less than a year since they got the entry. And that will give them a lot of credibility with us. That will give them a lot of leeway. But the main question is, can they pull it off over a season? And that's their learning curve.
Now for the next team. So, Aston Martin. Safe to say that was not the plan, how everything has gone for them. However, I do know, and I had said this on podcast last year, that it wasn't going to be a great start for them, but I don't think it was supposed to be this bad.
No.
Because it's bad. It's really bad.
It's a deep hole.
But Julianne, I'll start with you. They have a lot of work to do, obviously, with not only the battery, not only the power unit. Honda has a lot of work to do, but Aston Martin has a lot of work to do in the gearbox department, and Adrian Newey has a lot to do when it comes to the development of this car.
And politically as well, what I always heard about that team is that everything's being put into place for it to be a very big team, but it will only be the team that it can be if people who are in positions of power, if they are able to do whatever they want to do, and if they don't have to deal with the internal politics of the team. And we keep hearing people from inside the team saying engineering needs to lead. So this is something that I have been hearing for the last few months. So as if engineering is not leading. When engineering is not leading, that's what we see. The results are not there. Even though you can have all the money in the world, the factory is amazing. I've been there a few times. He has convinced Adrian Newey to go and join them. But if the processes are not right in every single department, and then it's very hard to be competitive in F1. And what I heard is that Adrian got to the team in April, March, and then he didn't really like the way the wind tunnel was being run. So he asked for a lot of changes. So that delayed the project. And what they are thinking is that, speaking to people in the team, they said, we are going to be good. We are underprepared, completely underprepared, because we made some decisions back in April, in May, to just delay everything, to just trying to be in this engineering first path that wasn't being followed before.
But if you have that and you have to develop your car, you need a powertrain. You need a powertrain you can build on, because without mileage, there is nothing to develop. So if both halves of the car aren't working, you will need one to have an ability to get the other one better. Which element of this team is going to get developed first? Is it the engine or is it the car? And is it useless to develop the car if the engine is not working? They are in such a problematic position right now.
And also I think coming into the season, just the messaging, like the messaging from like the marketing side of all of this. I think it just wasn't listening to what it was being told.
No, it's all hail St. Newey.
Well.
It's all hail St. Newey. You can't put someone on a pedestal while giving him 3/4 of a year to build a car that needs 2 years. And
at least.
It just feels like we're looking at a position where someone's gonna break, whether it's Lawrence or whether it's Newey or whether it's one of the drivers. Something's got to give here, because I cannot imagine they can tough it out all together. Something's gonna hurt.
And then for Andy Cowell, leaving his position and then moving to something that was resembling more of what they had wanted him to do as well, which was work with Aramco, work with Valvoline, work with Honda to try and put that entire group together. I think he kind of understood what this team could be in for the start of the season. I mean, he's still working, his butt off with Honda and with Aramco and with Valvoline, trying to get the project, back up on its feet and going in the right direction, something that he had done with Mercedes back in the past, and everything that they had going on 2014, trying to get that project going. He's kind of have to do the same here with this project, because Honda is just so far behind. I just can't believe it. Like the stuff I've been hearing, like not even having enough components, like for breakage was, I just couldn't believe that.
But how do you turn this ship while the season is going?
And you need to homologate your engine in a few days.
I have a feeling they're going to try and push for that after race 6 to really, push that envelope of being, if you're behind 2% of the top runners.
They need to be 4% behind, because then they can have like a serious advantage. 2% is not going to be enough for them.
They're further than that. Like they're further than 4%. Like, I don't know. I'll be curious to see if they could try and get something early. Imagine that. I'd be curious.
Yeah, maybe they vote tactically in one of the other votes and get like a Mercedes on your side to get some help with another vote to get early upgrades. But still, they first need to know what the problem is. We don't know whether or not they are completely aware what the solution will be. And that will take time in itself. So it's not like this is not going to be a 6-month thing. And that's what I'm afraid of, that someone cannot handle that reality.
Yeah,
and there's the gearbox, as you touched on, Tim. The gearbox is a big problem as well. Oh, yeah. It's the first time they are building one. It's the pains of not being a client when you're trying to aim really big and not being a client. First, you have to know how to deal with your engine manufacturer. You're not only getting the engine ready, you are steering as well. And that didn't gel really well. And that's why Andy Carroll stepped in, because whoever they had before doing this job wasn't doing this job properly. And that's how he started to get delayed over one delay over the other with the engine. So it's a lot of things together, isn't it? You can never point out one thing and say, oh, this is what went wrong. Integration was bad. Honda, they lost a lot of people to Red Bull powertrains mostly. They stopped the operation in the UK. They were trying to do as much as they could from Sakura. Of course, that's not great. So everything started to add up to this situation now.
Fernando Alonso must be having a deja vu moment for sure.
Yeah, it's got to be.
That's what I heard last year. Yeah. I heard last year this is going to be the same as McLaren, because they are treating Honda the same way that McLaren did. They're making the same mistake.
Talk about rules real quick, and then we'll end the show. I appreciate you guys taking the time for this. Super clipping. Let's start there, and then we'll move on to the overtake modes and things of that nature. For super clipping, so I had explained on the show a few episodes ago about super clipping, what it was, why we were going to be talking about it more as we were getting into this season. But essentially, super clipping on the straightaway, driver has their foot flat to the floor, running out of power. Essentially, MG UK takes over, takes power away from the engine. Driver still has their foot flat to the floor. Car begins to slow, and the harvesting begins to try to get up to 250 kilowatts. 350 kilowatts is the sort of the max power output that they want to try and get to, but 250 is where they have it capped at. Now, some conversations that I've heard that have gone on between teams, and I've heard this from team bosses themselves, is essentially to avoid the lift and coast when they get to the corner, into the corner, taking that 250 cap and moving it to 350 for the super clipping will help. I'm not too sure what you guys have heard, but that's what I'm hearing that has been discussed and proposed with the FIA. Julianne, I don't know if you go first on this one.
Yeah, I was speaking to some test drivers. I asked, what would you change? What would be the first thing you change? And they mentioned this. This would be the simplest way to help a little bit with the engine, with the energy. What you would do? Okay, if you are able to harvest 350 when you do super clipping, then there's less need for lift and coast. And then I asked, well, Why wasn't that the case? It's because it would be more dangerous, because what the driver feels is that they feel the handbrake, as if they had the handbrake, and so it stops the car a little bit. So they felt it would be dangerous to go for the full 350 of harvesting straight away, and that's why it was the case that they went for the 250. But drivers were then talking, it's actually more dangerous to do lift and coast, because with lift and coast, there's nothing visual for the driver who is following. That's the difference, because with super clipping is when you see all the lights flashing. Boop, boop, boop. It doesn't make this noise. This is my
Only in your head.
In my head. And this is when the super clipping is kicking in, and it has this warning, so drivers will know, oh, the guy has the handbrake on. I like this idea of the handbrake. I think it's helpful for us to understand what's going on. Because let's remember, the super clipping is controlled by the computers. The driver is not controlling anything. And the engine might decide to do super clipping whenever it wants. The driver will know, because they've done many laps, so they know when it kicks in. But it's something that the driver doesn't have any control over, but the driver who is following can see that this is happening because the lights are flashing. So it turns out that if you put everything together, lift and coast, super clipping, it's actually safer to let it go up to 350 than to have drivers doing lift and coast. Because how drivers know the other is doing lift and coast? The wing is going to shut down again, because straight line mode doesn't work with lift and coast. Everything is so simple, isn't it?
Yeah, it has not become a science project at all. But I think we're on a journey, and F1 is on a journey, and whether they extend the super clipping capacity or they bring down the battery capacity and rebalance it a little bit, there's just so much that's going to change in the next few weeks after they analyze all the data, and that's another political situation as well.
Yeah, so bringing down the battery energy, and Julianne, you're really good at explaining this better than I can do it. And notably, I mean, it is quite complicated and complex, but essentially, if we were in the race and we were racing, if the overtaking, we'll use that as an example, because if the overtaking, I think, becomes an issue in Australia, which it probably will be. Then I think the idea and the conversation has been that they take the 350 for the races and dial that down to 200. So when the driver uses boost button or overtake button, then they get the capacity to go up to 350, or use 350, I should say.
Yeah, so let's put it like that. Number one, this is the biggest worry right now, overtaking. They have realized that it's going to be really hard to overtake. So what they are trying is to create a bigger difference of speed between the cars, so we can have overtaking. And how can we do this? With the electrical power. The way it is now, a normal lap, you go to the straight, and it's the first flash you're going to see. The first flash you're going to see is in the back of the car, is when the driver hits 290 kph, 180 miles per hour. And then the electrical battery is going to start to taper down. They're going to lose, it's like a little steps
stairway
down. Yeah, it's like a stair down to zero. And then if you have overtake mode, that doesn't happen to you, because you're going to be with the full 350 if you have enough battery, of course. What they are trying to invert this. So a normal lap would be 200 maximum, 200 kilowatts I'm talking about. 200 maximum, and then it doesn't go down. The whole straight's going to be 200. The one that is going to vary is the guy with overtake mode. The guy with overtake mode goes to 350, and then it starts to go down. What they're trying to do, create a bigger difference of speed, because they have realized, I think the one moment that I heard so many people saying in the paddock, like, have you seen this? It was when Hadja was trying to overtake a Cadillac and couldn't. And the alarm sounds were all over the paddock after that one.
And it also gives them the opportunity, if they change the balance between the internal combustion engine and the battery and sort of skew it more to the internal combustion engine, thereby making the car slower, but they have that room because it's not F2 pace anyway, to not be so energy starved for the entire lap, because you require less from the battery. You could potentially even run smaller batteries, aiding the weight. But they have the capability to run then around 4 seconds off last year's car and still be well ahead of an F2. But the racing would be massively improved and the experience for the driver would be massively improved. So this is part of overtaking, but also part of the general experience in the car, because they're basically just too energy starved right now. It's just not enough in the battery and what they can reclaim to make it an enjoyable process. So that's the whole balancing act that we're looking at right now.
Yeah, and they can't make bigger batteries either. I mean, these things are already as big as they're probably going to get for the foreseeable future. But from everything I've heard, that's sort of the direction I think we're going to be going in once we get out of Japan and onto other races.
And there's a consensus within the teams to change this. There seems a political will to tackle this and it's led by Domenicali. He sees that the product might suffer if they do not.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. Really appreciate it. We went way over, but I think we were all just nerding out at how excited we are for this season to get going. You guys are going to Australia. Enjoy Australia. I won't see you until... Actually, Julianne, I don't know. Miami, I'll see you, Julianne.
Miami.
Nelson, I'll see you in Bahrain. Right?
Definitely. And I'm putting some money on a point for Cadillac due to chaos in Melbourne. That should pay out really well.
Oh, wow.
Just chaos, not merit. Chaos. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, guys, for taking the time to do this. Really appreciate it.